Hey everyone, Chris here. Thank you for tuning in to today's story. Whether you're here to unwind or drift off to sleep, or simply enjoy another chilling creepypasta, I truly appreciate your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it goes a long way to helping me create more content just like this. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. Heavy Rain, written by Brennaman. Part 2. Long after the barrage outside had ceased, Rebecca cried in darkness. Thankfully, the windows had held back the physical barrage, but they could not hold back the stench. That had flooded inside almost instantly. It had threatened to suffocate her, and she didn't even notice it anymore. Eventually, Rebecca was able to move her arms, and her feet, and her legs, but she didn't want to. The car had protected her, but Rebecca still felt unequivocally surrounded, like a child under the sheets. She didn't want to let one single limb hang free. The monsters might get it. The darkness wasn't total. A dim glow precipitated between the masses outside. Red light managed to leak through the edges of the blobs, where pieces met. The jagged lines covered her car like lightning. But it did her no good. Not nearly enough light could seep through to offer her any illumination. When she couldn't handle the weight of the darkness anymore, she reached for Mr. Sanders' phone, which lay face down on the center console. She fumbled for it and accidentally knocked it on the floor. Light flooded out from within. It was blinding, but welcome. After giving her eyes time to adjust, she searched for the flashlight. She was so thankful that the phone had stayed unlocked. She found it, and the entire car was illuminated. She wasn't ready for what she saw. A claustrophobic paralysis found her as she beheld the thing stuck to her car. Pressed tightly against the glass, the thing seemed to embrace her. Most of the glass had held, except for her rear window. It had nearly shattered, but every crack and shard was held fast in place by the revolting masses. They didn't move. They held her car in silent stillness. Rebecca recalled the tale of Jonah and the well, and she imagined this was how Jonah felt. She had been swallowed alive. She needed to get out. She flipped over. She hesitated to reach for the door handle. She didn't want to get any closer to the things than she needed to. She pulled, and when she heard the click, she pushed. Her whole body pressed up against the door. Her face met the window. But the door didn't budge. The masses outside held the door like glue. They fought against her. It was like trying to move a mountain. Rebecca screamed in protest. She couldn't be trapped in here. No, not in here. Panicking, she shoved again. She threw her weight into the door time and time again, but it didn't move. It couldn't. She might as well have been trying to beat her way through a concrete wall. After trying every single door, she found that they all held firm. She was truly trapped, and calling for help wasn't an option. She tried 3 times to dial 911 on Phil's phone. No matter where she was in the car, she couldn't get any signal. The mass had drowned out the light, and any hope she had of contacting the outside world, it seemed the car was shrinking by the second. In frustration, she lashed out with her feet. She aimed at the window, hoping maybe it would break. Hopefully the things would just fall off instead of in. If they stuck without the window, she decided she'd cut her way out. One of the shards had to have been sharp enough. With a determined forceful thrust, she brought her heel to the window. The only thing she managed to break was her leg as she hyperextended her knee. The pain returned her to her previously curled state. She began to cry and plead for someone to help her. Her instincts told her that if she screamed, then somebody would hear. Somebody would come along. Help would come. Her heart told her that that was a lie, and it was for a while. Soon she grew exhausted, and her voice grew hoarse. Not a single sound came from outside her car. The wind had ceased with the rain long ago, and there had been nothing since. No birds, no cars, no people. That silence allowed the small crunch outside to be amplified nearly tenfold. She froze and listened. She thought it had been her imagination. But as another crunch came, and then another, she realized it was real. It was like the sound of someone stepping on dry leaves. So something was definitely moving outside. The crunching approaching her car, and she heard him speak. Hello? The voice was older and haggard. It sounded muffled through the blobs. Is anyone in there? He didn't have time to ask her twice. Yes! She screamed, flying to the window. Yes, yes, please, help me, please. I can't get out, please. The man came closer to the car. He stopped just outside. You're covered. This shit's almost impossible to move. It holds fast. Give me a minute. It's starting to dry now. I have some tools at my house. I'll be right back. Rebecca smiled and thanked God. He must have lived in that home next to the silo. It was all okay. Yes, please. Thank you, she said almost all at once. The crunches returned faster as the man turned away. Relieved, she knew it would be over soon. But again, the day sought to destroy her expectations. Then the crunching stopped. Rebecca put her ear to the window, trying to listen. The glass was uncomfortably warm against her face. There was nothing but the roar of her own blood in her ears. Then a moan. That moan continued for several seconds before it evolved to a short gag. A gasp. Something had happened to the man. He must have only been 4 or 5 yards from the car. He cursed and grunted. There was a louder crunch that was followed by silence. That silent moment hung on the air, and Rebecca pushed hard against the window. She whispered a single, "Hello?" under her breath. Then the moment was shattered by his scream. Rebecca pulled her face from the window as if she'd been burned. What? She asked, panicked. What happened? Are you okay? Hey, are you okay? She was clueless. Had the man fallen? Maybe he'd rolled his ankle and fallen. But could that cause him so much pain? His scream was primal, like a wounded animal, and it ended for a moment. It was just long enough for the man to take a quick breath. And then he continued, the yell increasing in volume and pitch. What? She pleaded. What is it? Please, tell me. Are you okay? Talk to me. He did, in a raspy, shrill, and pained voice. Stay in the car. It sounded like he choked on the last syllable as a ghastly, gurgled yell came from his lips. Through his pained cries, Rebecca could only make out so much of what happened next. Stay growing. I feel it. Don't. Out of the car. Oh, God. No. Then unexpectedly and instantly, the screaming ceased. The silence returned and Rebecca shook. Her mind raced, and her breathing came in short, fast gasps. Tears warmed her face. No, she couldn't let him leave her. She wouldn't be alone again. Hey, get up! What's happening? Sir? Sir! With a determined fury, she brought her hand and the butt of the phone to the window pane. And that's when it moved. Almost in perfect sync with her motion, one of the blobs that had embraced her window stirred. The light showered her in every gruesome second. The movement was small. A tiny half-dollar size section on the bottom split into two and peeled itself apart. It was unexpected enough to send Rebecca stumbling backwards. It had startled her. Then it revolted her. The small section that split open revealed a new structure below it. Small, round, and moving, Rebecca realized she was looking at an eyeball. A seemingly human eyeball. The thing had opened an eye and was peering into the car through a cloudy blue iris. It searched about for just a moment before it locked its gaze right on her. No, Rebecca said, as if saying it would change her reality. Horrified, she couldn't break away from the unexpected and unwelcome staring contest. The eye held its gaze, and then it blinked. Rebecca wondered what it was thinking. This thing made of flesh and blood. But she couldn't resist. Its dead stare offered no clues. Could it think at all? Was it staring at her? Why had any of it happened? Then, out of the corner of her eye, and at the farthest edge of the light's reach, she saw it. Another eye had emerged from beneath the pulpous masses. When she shined the light on it, she saw that it too was looking directly at her. It didn't seem possible that it could see her. Once brown, cornea now wore a red gash across its surface, straight through its pupil. Despite that injury, however, it followed her perfectly. No matter where in the car she moved, both of the eyes followed her. Before long, they were everywhere. Every single piece of flesh that had fallen from the sky and stuck to her car eventually opened an eye. A singular eye. And they all stared down at her. She no longer felt alone. Instead, she felt like a trapped animal. A fox in a trap. The hunters didn't need to make a move. They only needed to watch and wait. She was their prey. Rebecca dropped the phone, and the light died. The car was cast into near total darkness once more. The darkness might have been comforting, had she not been so perfectly sure that those eyes were still watching her. She knew the darkness couldn't protect her. How much time passed inside the car? Rebecca was unsure if she blacked out or if time had simply slipped by her. But when she regained some semblance of sanity, it was late in the afternoon. The phone, its battery now at a measly 15%, showed the time at 4:55. Rebecca should have been home, but instead she was lost, trapped. She needed to be with her mother. It may have been that realization that brought motion back to Rebecca's body. From seat to seat and corner to corner, she scrambled. The phone's energy fell, the clock ticked, but the bars wouldn't return. She couldn't find a goddamn signal. Cautiously, she tilted the screen of the phone to the window. The sunlight reflected off, but just enough was able to illuminate some of the flesh beyond. To her relief, the eyes were closed. She made sure to check all of them. Part of her wondered if the eyes simply been a product of her paranoia. The blobs had reverted to being shapeless, featureless masses, and that was better. With luck, those eyes had never existed at all. She wondered if that man outside had been real. And ever since she'd let the darkness retake her, not a single sound besides her own breathing had come along. The unnatural, deathly silence had been heavier than the shadows around her. She still was utterly clueless to what had happened outside and what the world looked like. How widespread was the rain? Help still hadn't reached her yet, and she was doubtful any ever would. Maybe she had been quarantined. Surprisingly, she found that idea reassuring. In that case, it meant that at least people were still out there, and she'd be taken care of eventually. However, the alternative was far worse. Was it even possible the rain was a widespread epidemic? Had it covered the whole country? The world? Rebecca shivered as she remembered China. Something had happened in China and Somalia. Had the rains hit there too? She cursed herself for turning the radio. Was she alone? Really and truly alone? She'd hoped people were still outside. But what if they'd all suffer as the stranger had? Maybe the car had protected her, her savior, and her captor. She was trapped in her own racing thoughts. Those things brought back memories of her youth. Specifically, she recalled the day her dad hit that poor cat. They were in their old F-150, and the sun was so bright. A fat, gray cat had just run out into the road. It was like it had been waiting for the truck. It couldn't have timed it any better. She still remembered how it felt. The bump at the front wheel struck it, and the bump as the rear wheel finished it. Her dad told her not to look. He had pulled the truck over so he could go check on her. And Rebecca disobeyed and looked out the back window. All she wanted was a quick peek, just to make sure the cat was okay. She paid for her morbid curiosity. She recalled Mr. Sanders' words from just a few hours earlier as she remembered the terrible scene. Aside from its craned head and open eyes, nothing on it resembled a cat anymore. They'd hit it so hard, it was more red than gray. It was no longer an animal, just meat. You hit them hard enough, that's what they all looked like. They were all meat. So that's what it had to be. Flesh? That seemed to be the most logical assumption, but so impossible at the same time. She couldn't bring herself to accept that. Flesh of what? How could flesh rain from the sky? It had to come from somewhere, didn't it? She shut that thought, that word, away. It sickened her. She thought of those eyes, those very human eyes. Another thought came into being. It took hold like cancer in her head. The question came, had those things once perhaps been people? No, they weren't. It was too much. That was so much death, so much flesh. It was impossible in every sense, in every meaning. Where would they get all those people? It had to have been millions and millions of people murdered. There are millions in China, she thought. Maybe something worse than rain happened there. No, she told herself. Stop it. Her thoughts obeyed, trailing off like a bad note. It didn't matter now. She hadn't paid attention. She'd been worried about her own problems. What good did it do her to wonder? Who cares where they came from? Who cares if they're people? She gagged. All that she needed to do was escape. Her mother still needed her. Sweat rolled down her face. The temperature had to be only 30 degrees Fahrenheit outside, yet the car was steadily heating up. Those things were doing it, she was sure. They were warm, and the warmth they emitted was conducted directly into the car. Shedding her coat and sweater, she fanned herself with the white, sweat-soaked undershirt. Rebecca wondered how long it would take for her to cook alive, if that was possible. Death by rank flesh heat, as she decided to call it. It wasn't an option for her. Placing the phone in the center console, she moved to the driver's seat. She didn't like it. Those pulpous things were far too close when she sat there. But if she let herself roast any longer, she wouldn't get to live to regret it. Back at the wheel, she couldn't help but think about driving away. It wasn't a possibility, just a fantasy with those blobs. The packed windshield blocked her sight, and they also probably held her tires to the ground. She'd never move. She'd never get anywhere. Wondering if perhaps the noise would agitate the things, Rebecca saw their eyes in her mind. It had been hours since then, and the eyes hadn't returned. Assured that if they wanted to hurt her, they would have done so already. Rebecca started the car. The engine turned twice and started. More heat leaked out of the vents in moist, heavy waves. She gagged as the flesh stench overloaded her nose. It would take a moment for the AC to turn on. The radio was silent, as she knew it would be. While she waited, she tried out of curiosity to drive. Switching into gears, she eased down onto the gas pedal. The engine picked up in pitch, but the wheels did nothing but flinch. It felt as though she was trying to drive over a curb. She fed it more gas, as she figured the car wouldn't move an inch. She cursed those damned wheels and her damned life. A groan came from above her. It wasn't guttural. It wasn't those things. It was her car. The roof of her car was caving in. Something was pressing down on it. On the windows, she saw them twitch. The masses were moving now, reacting. It was the car. It had to have been. She had accidentally woken them up. Cursing her careless mistake, Rebecca yanked the keys from the console. The car fell silent, but the things kept moving. They struggled against each other, wiggling back and forth in their confined spaces. Perhaps they were searching. Rebecca held her breath, and she waited. The motion had started to rock the car from side to side. The thing shook her, harder and faster. The lurching continued until Rebecca felt she was going to throw up. The wheel was all she had to hold on to. Fortunately for her, the rocking did not persist for long. After just a few seconds, everything stopped. The car fell back to rest, and calm retook the air. Rebecca sucked in an exhausting gasp. Reluctantly, she released the steering wheel, but as her eyes watered, she reached for the phone. She had been tormented enough. Never before had she been so desperate to speak to her mother. Still, there were no bars, no signal, and the battery just fell to 7%. Her heart was already drained, and she fell back into the rear seat, too weak to cry. It was hopeless. Rebecca wasn't sure what prompted her to check again. It was habit, probably. In the back seat, she had subconsciously refused her fate. Looking back at the phone, she was shocked. It was weak, but finally a connection had finally been made. A signal. There was a signal. Rebecca wasn't sure if her fingers had ever moved faster in her life. She dialed in the number for home. As she held the phone to her face, she didn't know if she could even speak. Her hands were cupped over her mouth. No evil in this world held a candle to the next 10 seconds. Every beep hit harder and cut her deeper than any of those damned monstrosities outside could ever hope to. Overwhelming joy gave way to grief yet again. She could only hope that God, if there was one, wouldn't let her down. That's what her mother would have told her. Her mother always had faith, and Rebecca was rewarded for hers. Hello? A fragile voice came in over the phone, weak but alive. "Oh my God," Rebecca gasped. "Oh my God, Mom, is that you?" "Who is this?" her mother asked. On any other day, this question might have broken Rebecca's heart, but today it was all Rebecca needed. "Rebecca, Mom, it's Rebecca. Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." "Of course, dear," she said, unconcerned. "Of course you're Rebecca. Why, yes, I'm okay. Why wouldn't I be?" Rebecca pumped her fist in the air, and she kicked her feet several times in furious juvenile joy. The smile that spread on her face was unmatched. Thank the Lord. Her mother was safe. That meant there was hope. Maybe her nightmare wasn't as widespread as she had feared. Maybe, just maybe, there'd be a chance for her. A chance for everyone. "Mom, what's happened? What's happened over there?" Her mom was confused. "Nothing much. There's not much to do here. Someone needs to water the flowers. I should water them." "No," Rebecca stated. "No, don't go outside, Mother. Listen to me. Can you turn the TV? What does the TV say?" "Do you want to talk to Rebecca?" her mother asked, confused. "No, Mom, I'm Rebecca." "She should be home by now. My Rebecca. She always comes home. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm a bit confused." Those words broke her heart. "I will be, Mom. I'll be home soon. I promise I'm coming home," she assured. "Okay, well, be careful. I'm going to water the plants. Should I? It's been raining hard today." Rebecca froze. No, it couldn't be. Could it really be that widespread? Home was miles away, but her mom was okay. Perhaps her mom had just been lucky. She was inside after all, and as long as those blobs stayed outside, she'd be fine. But her flowers. Rebecca knew how she could be in her confused state, and if she was truly determined, then... "Mother, listen to me. I have never been more serious in my life. Do not go outside." "I'll do what I want. Only Rebecca can." "Mother," Rebecca wailed, "do not leave the house. The plants don't need water. Just listen to me." Rebecca stopped. If these were the last words she ever spoke to her mother, she didn't want them to be screams. She took a deep breath and begged. "Please, Mom, please, just wait for me. We'll water the plants together. Just wait for me to get home." "Okay," her mother said. "You get here, and then you, Rebecca, and me can go water the flowers. You're gonna need it so bad today." "I'll be there soon, Mom." The last words choked out. "I love you." The line went dead. The phone, hanging on at 3%, was about to leave her in darkness. But now she had to move. She had to get out. She had let Mr. Sanders down, and she couldn't help that old man. She refused to let anyone else die. Not herself, not her mother, not anyone. Adrenaline filled her veins, and with a roar of a warrior, Rebecca threw herself at the rear door. It budged. And with that, we end part 2 of Heavy Rain by Brennaman. If you made it this far, thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. I truly appreciate you.